I think it's the most beautiful part of Tanya to understand how to love Hashem, because most human beings don't love Hashem in the sense of what the Alter Rebbe is explaining. So, of course, anyone who says, yes, we love Hashem, I love Hashem, you love Hashem, we all love Hashem, but there must be something more, because what it's implying is almost if that we can't get to this level of fear and of love of God. So we're like, that seems strange. I mean, if you speak to any woman, we are very in tune with our emotions, our feelings. I love God, you love God, I fear God, you fear God. I mean, but it's talking about a woman. It's talking about a man. So it's talking about both of us. And that, in my mind, and I'm sure in your mind, seems like, well, we need to learn a little bit more of what's going on here. So what is real love? One needs to look at the definition of love between, and in my mind, I think between a man and a woman. Because if you look at a man and a woman, you'll say, okay, what would one look for in their spouse that they're considered love? That he cares about me and he respects me. It would be this devotion that each woman possesses. So, and she gives naturally to her children, to her husband, and to all of her friends, this, this love and fear and this respect. So sometimes we ask this question of our spouse. We want a reaction. And even if we've been married for so many years, I think so many implies if you're married more than 5 years. And for most of us, that's like, but there always is that question, do you really care? And when your spouse does something sweet, you notice that they put the effort in, they put that devotion in, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, that definitely had an impact on how you feel, how the relationship turns in a positive way. All because of what we put in, the effort that we put in. So this is the same way when it comes to Hashem. What is our effort? So if the effort is going to be that it's just super easy for certain things that we do, then it's not real effort for us. Maybe for someone else, maybe they have a difficult time tapping into their emotions. And for them to show any emotion to anyone is a big deal. So if they're showing emotion to God, they wake up in the morning and they're saying Moda'ani and they're davening and they're thinking about Hashem, that's an incredible level for them. They put in their worth, they've put in their feelings, they've gotten in tune, they did their work, as you call it, a service for God. But for some people, that's just natural. You're going to see someone and you're just hugging and kissing them and, so happy to see them. So where the person's emotions, they didn't go anywhere in that regard. For them, it's like, that's easy. And then it takes more work to put in. And so that's what it's really talking about, is what work are we doing to put in? And when we get involved in our everyday life, with our everyday things that happen, whether it's traffic, whether it's dealing with our different situations in life, especially with how things have gone, we almost wonder if this is, alternate universe, we wonder if this is really happening, this type of stuff. So, and that has an impact on our day. It has an impact on how we look at things when it comes to, where do we place God? Do we love God? Of course we love God. Is he on our number one list? So he should be. We need to make him our priority. And so these next 9 chapters of Tanya is going to be discussing the whole idea of fear and love of God and our relationship, and how one can come to this idea. So now there is this verse in this chapter, and it talks about, and now Israel, what does Hashem, your God, ask of you? Just to fear God? The Talmud says, is fear of Hashem a little thing? So fear of God is a big thing. So now we have this whole idea where it seems that it's a very, not a big deal. But then all of a sudden, the Gemara, the Talmud comes in and says, it's a very big deal. That effort, that push, that love, that fear that you're trying to tune into, it's a huge deal. So we have this this contradiction almost. We need to figure out what's really going on and who's right. So there's a story that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he's a very famous sage, and he's about to pass away, and his students come to sit by him and talk with him. And the rabbi responds, may it be that Hashem's will, that your fear of God is like your fear of man. And the students are asking him, is that all you want from us? Really? That's it? It's easy. All of our years spending with the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and we got away easy. It's so simple. All we have to do is fear God the way you fear a person. So the rabbi responds and he says to them in a more serious tone, Halavai, like I wish that you would fear Hashem as much as you fear man. Because if someone comes to someone's door, what do? You are dressed, even for the mailman, even for someone just knocking, you are dressed. So like this morning I had to make sure every single one of my kids was dressed because we had a handyman fixing our window downstairs. One of the windows needed a little fixing, and everyone was dressed and ate, and everything was good, and it was before 8 a.m. And so normally would that be the schedule? But can you say that you're going to be dressed and everything is perfect before 8 a.m. when we're going to be saying, of course, their brachas when they pray, of course, they're dressed in their cheder clothes and their uniforms. But before that, they're going to be more hamish, more easygoing with what they're going to be dressed in. So that's the real question. Or that's the real answer, really, that we're seeing from this dialogue between the rabbi and his students. And so now we're understanding a little bit more. The sages are saying one thing. They're saying it is a big deal, fear of God. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, is saying another thing. He's saying, it's not that big of a deal. And you're thinking, well, Moshe, yeah, we understand it's not that big of a deal when it comes to you. But then, of course, we remember that Moshe, he's not talking about himself. He's talking about the Jewish people. And so he's saying it's not that big of a deal for the Jewish people. So again, we don't understand this because the sages are saying one thing, Moshe is saying another thing, and we're looking at ourselves and saying, okay, who's right? What is it? Has to be something. So this is the dialogue. One of the things I was thinking of, one of the examples I was thinking of a person really putting effort in is when we're going on a diet. If we're dieting or if we're being careful with what we're eating and we notice that summer's coming along and we're going to start, everyone's going to be working out and dieting and the whole thing, the whole shebang. We put hours invested in this. Sometimes we even have little diaries. Sometimes we even, we make sure that we invite someone to come with us. It's such a scheduled thing for something that really, you could think it should be the last thing really on most people's list. Just, you're kind of watching, but not to the extent where we see people, what they go through. Especially women who are very in tune with their feelings, with their emotions. They are very careful with diets and with what needs to be done. So the same exact idea is when it comes to Hashem. Hashem is expecting certain things from us. Not just status quo, not just, okay, you're trying, so nice. Holiday season's coming around, we might as well get involved. And even if for some of us, we're invested in our weekly classes, we're making sure God is noticed and we care about him every day. But there's so much more of what's going on here, of how to have a deeper relationship. So another concept that it's mentioning, when it mentions Moshe, it also talks about the idea that he's the shepherd of faith. An interesting expression. And when we think about it, we realize that Moshe really has a part in each one of us. Because he's the general soul of the generation, he carries every single person's soul within him. And he's the shepherd of faith because we understand that how devoted he is to the people, to the cause, to doing whatever it took to make sure that the Jewish people and Hashem were always connected. So this must come in with this answer that we're going to get to, but we clearly see that it takes Moshe to help us in our connection with Hashem, because each one of us has this leader quality, because Moshe, there's a little bit of Moses within you. So each one of us has this little bit of Moshe within us. Each one of us, then when we're approaching different things, even if we feel we can't do that, we definitely can, because we have this Moses within us. Soul is entering the body. You could think, okay, it should make a big deal. It should make a big difference. But unfortunately, you have this idea, and I think I mentioned it before, the idea of the serpent skin. It's like the evil inclination that's going to trick you, that's going to make you distracted. It's almost like, you're sent on this treasure hunt. And if you ever do this as kids in a mall, and you're sent in there, that's what they used to do before they have all these, this technology. And we would go into the malls and this treasure hunt, and we all got distracted. There's something over here, there's something over there, and it was such an easy thing. But somehow we never could focus on the goal, because there was just so much going on around us. So I think the same idea is what's really going on here, is that there is so many distractions, but we keep going back to the original question: what is it? How do we get to this level to be considered that we really have a fear, that we really have a love? It seems from the Tanya, from the Alter Rebbe, what he's trying to express to us is that it goes much deeper. And I always feel like sometimes when people come to the shul, the synagogue, or they're coming to certain stuff, people that I would say come once a year, and I look at them and they look so professional. They're these, they can be doctors, or they can be sophisticated people, and very sophisticated people. And maybe I wouldn't want to, do my math problems near them, because they're already doing, I don't know what level in their head. But in each way that person developed themselves to become this incredible human being, they have this childlike mentality when it comes to serving God. They almost put on their kids' voices. Like, they remember, I remember God, and when I stopped learning in school, you could say classes, in Hebrew school, you must have been, I don't know, bas mitzvah, bar mitzvah, whatever it was, and all of a sudden, it was, goodbye, God, I'll see you. I'm still going to keep with you in my pocket. I'll still have you in my life. But it's only going to be in that 12-year-old or the 13-year-old form. It's not going to be in that way that a mature human being going through life and going through different circumstances is going to have a deeper way of thinking, of feeling, of expressing themselves. And when you have God sitting there beside you, you're including him in your decisions, it's a whole different story. When there's prayer, and not just prayer where we get used to how we used to have it perhaps as a younger child. But when I was younger, I'm embarrassed to say this, but we used to have a competition. How fast could you finish prayer? And then we would sit down, and the teacher would always say to us, no, come on, girls, you can't do that. That was literally, I had time to my watch. It was less than 5 minutes, and we looked at her and we said, we did it. And as you get older, you say, how is that possible? And it's not that, it's not that we get to that point. We're not 90 years old. We get to the point way before then that it's about, we need to talk to God. We get to a certain point in life where we want to include him. But if we're not including God, we're including someone else. And yes, we can have friends and we can have family and have discussions with them. But the top of the ladder, who should be there? And that even comes before one's spouse is God. And people can say, I don't know, or whatever. Maybe they have their own feelings about it, but it's where one's mentality is. Because if God is in the top of the ladder and he's with you in everything, then that should bring your spouse and your friends and everyone with you, but with a much more, this deeper, loving connection. Because everything that you're doing in your life, there then is this reaction from yourself and from other people. Like, you're having this reaction of, well, was it worth to say that? What should I say? How should I act? How should I react? And we look at ethics of our fathers, how one is supposed to react. We look at the Torah portion, and we notice more and more each year how it has a real effect in our lives, and we go, wow, I just wish I can be that way. So this is really what's going on when it comes to where does God stand in the ladder. But if God is only on the third rung, because that's how much we've invested in him in our life, because we remember him when we were like little kids, going to, Hebrew school or whatever it was, and we just got busy studying in school, then going to university or going different, whatever went with our job, and we didn't have time for him. So then it becomes much more complicated to have a mature adult in every area of their life and then try to bring God in, but your perspective is that of 5-year-old, maybe a 10-year-old, and it's a much more difficult thing because the you could say they're in your one's mind, they're not having this mature, feeling towards God, bringing him in our life with a love and fear, but it's more like a kid's like the Shemona Esrei I used to do. It's like this 5 minutes and you're sitting down. So that's what I feel, that it's going in this direction. And the Alter will bring this example. Well, actually, the Zohar brings up. He brings the example of the Zohar that one should kind of take, almost if you have everyone in Wisconsin knows this, that if you have this firewood and you want to, heat up your house, and sometimes if you get a piece of wood that wasn't from the store and it's not all dried out and it's going to be like this nice wood, and like looking at that piece of wood and I know, that's going to be 4 hours, that's going to be 8 hours. The kids are going to be nice and toasty, but sometimes you got to break it up, the wood, a little bit, because it just sometimes won't go. And so same exact idea as when a person is having their relationship with Hashem. Sometimes we got to allow ourselves to be humble and vulnerable. Sometimes you say humble, what does that really mean? And we still have that child's approach to it. And I think that when we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable to Hashem, allowing him to be inside our life to the extent where it's okay. It's okay. God, you're seeing me in everything. And that's okay. And I accept that. And I'm humble. And I'm humbling myself because I want you to be with me. That's very different than what a 10-year-old is going to think. A 5-year-old is going to think. We get that level with our spouse, hopefully, that we can really have that mature conversations with our parents, with our friends. But to also have this discussion with God, it's a whole different level. And this is really what the Alter Rebbe is bringing the Zohar in, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai explaining all this stuff, is getting to this point that it's not just that, we left God in our pocket, but he's on our ladder at the top. So we're getting there, but this is really what our beautiful Tanya is talking about. So there was this example of I think it was the Rebbe, not our Rebbe, but the Rebbe a few generations ago, and he is in the wagon. Now we can only imagine. Nowadays we're thinking, people in Ukraine, they wish they had wagons. They wish they can get. They wish they had some way. They're wishing they had the wagons. I thought there was some sort of meme saying the Amish people are lucky because they have horse and buggy. Yeah, because of gas, and exactly as well. But in that country, it's because they want to get out of the border, and it's an enormous amount just to get past everything, especially with the cars. So either way, it could be the gasoline or the, So there was a story of this young Rebbe. He must have been, I don't know, little boy. And he had this driver taking him, and the driver was not religious person at all. He wasn't, I don't think he was even Jewish. Just a nice, wonderful person that always drove him around wherever he wanted to go. And he saw that there were some oranges on his way, and he wanted to take some oranges. And I think most of us would have took some oranges too. But this young Rebbe, being so careful, didn't want to take the oranges and didn't want his friend, the driver, to take the oranges. He didn't want to be considered stealing. So he goes, oh, look over there. They're coming, let's go. And of course, the driver, he doesn't see anyone, and he starts going off, God forbid someone will see they have a few oranges. And as he's going down the road, he doesn't see anyone. And so eventually the boy says to him, but God is watching. God is seeing. And so, of course, this little boy, he doesn't want his friend, the driver, to get in trouble. And for him, even a few oranges is a very big deal. So it was just something that I liked about the story of this fear of God, this fear of heaven, that, most of us saying, well, we're going to fear more the person, God forbid, or what they're going to do if you see a few oranges, and maybe your friend, the driver, will get in trouble. But if God is watching, sometimes we overlook that. And again, I think it's a perspective of this mature, coming from childhood, and taking God into adulthood with us. And sometimes even if we have to go back and drag him along, that's okay too. We just have to, it's just harder. It's harder to do, but a person could master it as well.